repurposed 1,000 programs. In all seriousness, the era of Tron is in full force. We got like 15 different posters. Some of them are character focused, some of them have light cycles. Then you also got some smaller TV spots, and then you have some behind the scenes videos, as well as that amazing Flynn Lives compilation. One of the best things Disney has done in recent years. We're gonna analyze everything, but I want to give a spoiler warning. If you've seen my videos, you've seen the trailers, and you watch this video, there's a high chance you've seen most of the movie. You won't even need to go to the movie theater. The rest of us can continue on. There is a couple new Flynn clips, and this is obviously when Ares first arrives on the 82 grid. Now in the Flynn Lives compilation video, we actually got the original clip in the leaked trailer last year, because we can actually see a better shot of Ares, and he says Flynn, and then we see Kevin Flynn walk up and says greetings program. You can see he's kind of like a hologram. You can see him glitching a little bit as he walks up, and I want to focus on Flynn's symbol right here. Obviously it's the same as in the first movie, but this symbol is also seen on Eve's motorcycle helmet. I was really surprised, but it's a really awesome detail, and this is not where the connections end, as this chase scene seems to be a direct Tron parallel to Sam on his bike at the beginning of Legacy. Now this scene is Eve being chased by Ares and Athena, where we saw the police light wall slash moment, and during this you can actually see Ares' screen, and it says 16 minutes till de-resolution. They're chasing her on the freeway. Now shortly after this, we know Eve takes a light cycle and drives off. This was discussed at Comic-Con, but we actually see it to see how she gets on it behind the scenes, to see it in the official version, to see it in action in this final photo. It's just great. Now continuing on with Eve, we actually get to see more of her in Dillinger's grid. This moment right here is possibly her on the Dart, a recognizer, or another vehicle, and she's looking out where you can see the rest of the grid and the portals in the center, and you can see the unique disc on her back. And in the last video we went over this when she was on the light skimmer, and I thought that it was probably the permanence code, and it makes a lot of sense that this would be, considering that the disc is a hexagon, just like the rest of the Dillinger grid discs that are circular. Now we got other behind the scenes clips with Ares against other programs, and you can get a good look at her disc right there. And I really do think that this permanence code disc is from Dillinger's grid, not just because of the comparison to the other discs, but because we know the NCOM discs are still fully circular. We've seen them in many different teasers at this point, and it would make sense that as soon as she takes the disc, it would turn a bluish white as soon as she put it on, and it was probably more of an orangey red beforehand. And if we look at this clip of just Dillinger's grid, we actually get to see a clearer shot of it, and if you look towards the bottom, there is water kind of rising up. This is the light skimmer. It looks just like the other clips, and this is them frantically trying to get to the portal. We even have this quick clip of them racing towards the portal. It's directly in front of them. You can really feel the tension here. In the other clip we just went over, there is these solar sailors again. We can actually see the wings in the front, and they're in red. Now back to the permanence code. We did discuss in a previous video that Ares wants to become a real person, and Eve and him will work together, possibly with some extra help with Flynn. We can see in this other teaser that Eve is looking on her computer screen at digital DNA, and it's possible that this is earlier in the movie where she discovers it for the first time, or it's been stolen and she needs to get it back, or this is them uploading it after taking it back from the Dillinger grid. Either of these options seem plausible, but it's unclear at this time. Now at the beginning of the German TV spot, we saw a random explosion, and this was also in the Comic-Con music video shown, and we actually get to see it again on the NCOM grid. And this is while Ares and his team are infiltrating, I guess, the main city that has the force field, and we've obviously also seen Ares walk through that force field. Now we see Ares helping a soldier walk, and this is while the explosion is happening, and I suspect that this is Cameron Monaghan's character. It really feels like Legacy here when Clue and Flynn reintegrated, and I feel like this explosion doesn't destroy the whole grid, but maybe just the city. It's hard to say. I just don't think that they would go that far, but regardless, the cycles haven't been kind lately. Also, side note, in the German TV spot and this other TV spot, we actually get to see data trees, which is very similar to Tron Identity and Catalyst data trees. This doesn't mean this is the ARC grid. It's definitely the NCOM grid, but it just shows the evolution of all of the new grids, and it could be hinting at the ARC grid maybe getting a cameo. Considering considering the fact that Bithell Games did hint at knowing what comes later in the timeline, so they could have all been working together, it would make a lot of sense. Now, while we're still focused on the Encom grid, I did discuss last video how there was a daylight sky, and I theorized that Sam gave the grid a sun because of Korra and her fascination with it. Now, unfortunately, this theory got shut down because when looking into the D23 Tron Ares magazine that dropped, it was revealed that Eve Kim did create this new Encom grid and Sam had nothing to do with it. And I feel like this was a missed opportunity, to be honest. Even if Sam isn't playing a big role in this film, we still should have been given that small fun fact, as it would have strengthened the plot of Tron Legacy. Now, while we're talking about Sam Flynn, I should mention that it was discovered that Garrett Hedlund recently followed director Joachim Roning on Instagram. Now, we knew that Joachim followed Garrett over a year ago, but only now leading up to the movie, he followed back. It leads many people to believe that he is in fact in this movie, even briefly as a cameo with the Ducati photo that was posted last year. If you look at this clip right here, we are in Mexico, and this is probably where those reshoots were done that we went over last year regarding the Ducati bike. And you can actually see a motorcycle driving here. It makes everyone believe that this is Sam Flynn. We could be jumping to conclusions. It also could be Eve Kim on this bike. It's either her or Sam Flynn. It's one of the two. It could even be Eve Kim driving directly to Sam for all we know. But either way, it is interesting that we did get this clip. But I would say these two things, on top of Garrett acting a little funny in interviews, is as close to a confirmation as we'll get until we see the movie. Now, I'll return to Garrett later as there's a little bit more to say, but first we gotta go over the big mistake Disney made. In one of the teasers that dropped a while ago, we got to see Ares in a white suit. We see him later in the movie fighting against soldiers who once took orders from him. It's an awesome scene, and we on Twitter were all surprised that this was included. And then in the next couple days, we got more teasers, and on that third day, it was a repost of day one's footage. And I got confused, and it turned out that they cut that scene completely. So that scene was not intended to be shown at all. But weeks later, when the tickets on sale teaser came out, they included that scene again, but with him in the red suit. And this isn't all, because if we look at this moment right here, where Eve looks very distressed next to Ares, he's in a red suit, but with a new symbol. And if you kept up with the set photos last year, you would know that the symbol was on the suit that turned white. And after somebody pointed out a close-up version of this image, you can see that it was a very rushed job, because you can still see a bit of a white light line where the red is. So it proves Disney accidentally exposed the back half of this movie. And what makes this mistake even worse is that new footage shows Ares without any circuitry at all. So it implies that this change happens during the battle. So Disney's had a really difficult time covering this up. Now, I really hope that there's a bigger twist or more going on than Ares facing off against Athena, because if that's the case, then we basically know how this film ends. But with a full war in the real world, there has to be more going on than a 1v1 battle. Now, something that caught my eye during this light pack scene is Athena holding Ares' disc. You can actually see the pop-up blades we saw in previous clips, as well as one of the posters that dropped recently, which is my second favorite poster, and we'll go over my favorite in just a moment. But the fact that she's holding it, and I do believe that Athena does take the role of Ares, she takes his rank. Dillinger assigns it to her because she has a triangle disc on her back. In interviews that Jodie Turner-Smith was talking about humans' impact on AI and how that can lead them, and I'm not going to bring the conversation in a certain direction, but let's just say there's certain tech billionaires that have certain AI that she was making a comparison to, and she was saying that that's kind of the similar connection. Like I said, I don't want to go into detail, but I did find that quote quite interesting. She's the opposite side of this AI story, and then obviously Ares is the one we will mainly explore. But it's interesting, we're not just seeing it through one lens, we're seeing it through basically two lenses, and I think that's a lot better, and that gives me hope that it won't just be a 1v1. Now, while we're on the topic of Athena's disc, I want to go over all the new posters, including this one with Ares and Athena holding out their discs against each other. This poster and the Recognizer one are my top two. The other ones are not as good in my opinion, but they're still decent. Like, this one feels very MCU and Star Wars, where it's half grid, half real world, and I like that concept, but I don't like the floating character aspect nearly as much. Also, including Flynn in the center is really cool, but I think adding him in the center presents him as if he has a major role, even though we know his role is very minor. Either way, still looks solid, but as I said, the rest of the posters are a bit more generic, like these two of Ares riding through the city on his light cycle. We also have this Ares helmet poster with the Tron text digitized into it, and then an Athena poster of her looking to the side. As for the character posters, Ares, Flynn, Flynn, Eve, Athena, Julian Dillinger, and Elizabeth Dillinger. We don't have one of Seth or AJ, which makes sense. I guess they're going to be more minor characters because Seth is Eve's assistant. And what's interesting is the lighting. We've got Ares and the Dillingers all in red, where Eve and Flynn are in blue, and one of their eyes has a light over it. There might be a bigger narrative on that later. Maybe it's a big foreshadowing of something. Potentially, it might not. But I personally, at least after the Tron Ares movie does drop, would probably do an updated poster of Ares himself and kind of split it down the middle and have it one half is red, one half is blue. They can't do that now because that would spoil it. But then again, they've already spoiled it in the previous teaser, so I wouldn't have been surprised if Disney did something like that. Though it is super unfortunate that we didn't get a poster of the Tron pose. We've gotten it for most movies, shows, and even Tron 2.0, so I don't know why we can't get it for this movie, but maybe we'll see it in the actual film during the portal scene or something. And we do see Athena straight up break into Encom, destroying windows, tables. This could be earlier in the film when they're entering the Encom grid, or way later when the invasion begins. And while we're on the topic of Encom, we got a few new clips of the building in its full glory. We got a daytime shot and one at night with the sign lit up. I'll say it looks great and certainly better than the 82 film, since we never fully saw the sign at the top there, but the legacy version of Encom is still light years better in my opinion. It just feels like the grid in the real world glowing up at night, and the Ares Encom building just feels more like a typical building, but it's not bad since number one, some online suggested that maybe the legacy building is still out there and it's a different location from this Encom building, and also because this movie takes place in the real world, the interior of Encom is going to be seen a lot more in this movie compared to Legacy, and from some of the behind the scenes images we've seen of Encom inside, it's clear that's going to be better at the very least. And then this scene is probably the second biggest one. Ares is in the Encom building and he's running straight out to the window. Now at first it felt like some sort of like digital armor was being placed on him as he was running outside. Something was going on. Maybe it was involved with whatever Kevin Flynn does to him. But then the more you look at it, you can actually see that Ares is slowly being digitized. He might be quickly running as far away as possible. This was accidental. Maybe Athena does this to him, trying to force him into the Encom grid, or Ares is kind of preparing himself in a position to get on the light cycle on that grid. Though I don't know why he'd be running away. It's a little confusing, but this looked really cool. And the main reason I thought it was armor is because the way his shoulders look, it looks as if he was wearing kind of like the armor that they would wear in Tron Uprising when they would be on the game grid. That's the only reason why I make that connection, but I do believe this is simply him getting digitized onto the Encom grid. Let's move on from Encom over to Dillinger Systems, as we gotta focus on the digitizing laser. As you can see, it's red and quite different from the 82 and Legacy versions. You can actually hear the sound effects fully as it essentially 3D prints the dart as Ares comes down from. Now continuing on, we see Ares is driving a car and they have a playful exchange about how Ares was spying on Eve and he hacked her. We can also see Ares watching Eve being interviewed on TV possibly, which makes sense. This is similar to him just looking at humanity in other clips previously. And this interview was actually discussed months ago, and it's in regards to Eve talking about AI, but you can also see when Ares is on the run, it seems as if they are on the run from the police, and maybe Dillinger was able to kind of get them on his side because the SWAT team going into the same area where Ares was materialized initially. We know from set photos last year that there was, I believe, the fire department and police at Encom at night, so we know that they are on the run from multiple different parties. Now there are tons of Eve and Ares scenes in these teasers, just little 2-second ones, and besides the car one, there's another light skimmer one, just slightly different ones. But besides that, we get to see later Ares, Eve, and then her assistant Seth in an elevator where Seth gets to ask Ares about his name and how he's the god of war. And I'm sure this scene is going to be pretty comedic, and this is right before Ares goes and beats up Julian's security guards, likely rushing to get into Dillinger's grid so they can get the permanence code. It makes sense Seth would stay behind to help them get in and out. Now let's focus on the light cycles real quick, because back at Comic-Con it was discussed that Ares would be doing an Akira slide, which is awesome, but what's even cooler is now we actually get to see it in action, and it's as hype as I could have imagined. Also, in terms of action shots, this right here is the best action shot I've seen possibly in all of Tron content. The music, it just hits so hard. It's also really cool, we got these mini light walls with these staffs, and you can see all the programs fighting in the background. People who say this movie doesn't have the visual appeal that Legacy did, this clip is definitely gonna prove them wrong. Also, Also, when the plane crashes right here, we get the blue Tron text officially in HD. Now at Comic-Con, in the last video, I actually went over this blue text. We basically get the plane crash, then you get the 82 types of textures, and then the way the Tron text turns looks a lot like 82, but then as the text forms, it's a newer version of the Tron Legacy text, and then it gets slowly corrupted to red, which is the Tron Ares text we've always seen. And the music with this, oh, I've played this 1,000 times on loop. Many people have, I'm sure. Now I want to focus on the straight up celebrity slash influencer promotion that Disney has done for Tron Ares, because they went all out for this. There were many on social media that were not huge fans of this at all, and we'll obviously touch on that, but first I want to focus on the Saquon football ad we got. This one was so great. We started off with 9 Inch Nails, a recognizer. As you can see, the football stadium, it turns into a light cycle grid similar to Legacy and Uprising, but in red. It looks visually stunning, and I won't be surprised if we get a scene like this in the actual movie. Now there's a shorter ad with Saquon, and we can see him riding the light cycle throughout the city. And a separate ad, now this is where everyone had the problem, is where Saquon passes his light cycle off to Mr. Beast. I know this is a controversial pick because there was obviously issues with Mr. Beast in the last year. I'm not going to go into it, but it does make a lot of sense that they would get him to promote the movie because the ad is overall entertaining regardless of the pretty bad dialogue, and having Mr. Beast's younger audience get into the Tron franchise is something we all want because this will lead to more Tron projects. Now moving on to more influencers, they got to go directly on set, meet the cast, and see all the cool locations. For example, this TikTok shows us that we're probably gonna get the underground office in Flynn's arcade. It was speculated since we were getting the old Flynn 82 office recreated, but it was unclear if they were gonna do the underground one, and I was extremely excited to hear this because now this increases our chances at seeing the Legacy grid and just certain aspects of Legacy, because there were certain leak accounts online hinting at the return of Garrett Hedlund, obviously, which does make sense, and a random character like Jarvis, which is kind of weird considering he got Derez. None of that's confirmed just yet. Just take that with a grain of salt, but it's still cool to think about. And I think they're going to the underground office specifically for Eve's research, or they are going to the Legacy grid. When you look at the behind the scenes of the supposed Flynn's arcade from the influencers on TikTok, it's very apparent that this is an NCOM, and this is just a section of NCOM that has all these cool arcade machines, but we also have clips of Athena going after Eve. We get to see extended clips of that, and we can see Eve is hiding behind her board full of her research, and it's a lot of research from the original movie. We've got some concept art from the original Tron. We've got all the recognizers. She is studying everything to understand it for her grid, for advancements in the world. According to the SFX September magazine, Eve has a personal struggle that we're gonna go into in this movie that we don't even know about yet. So that's gonna be kind of her motivation, and you can see there's glass windows around this area, so it makes me think that it's a section inside NCOM. We can see a Discs of Tron logo with the Legacy font. We also get to see tons of NCOM arcade machines and a full HD image of the Flynn's arcade logo. They merged this logo with the Home of Tron one, and it's got the Legacy font as well. Glad to see this. We do have a photo of Ares, Eve, and Seth inside the arcade with Ares holding a Rubik's Cube, and that's pretty cool. And I think this is moments before he runs through the window because something happens. They look pretty serious. Now I'm sure many of us are jealous that we couldn't go on set ourselves like these influencers, but I'm personally happy for them, and I'm also happy that they were able to give us even more information regarding this movie. Now I want to get into some confusion that all of us have regarding Joachim Ronning. Now he did confirm that we are going to the 82 grid. He said that that's where Kevin Flynn is. He said, quote, he's very much in the film, like really in it. He's like a ghost in the machine. He lives in the old 82 Flynn grid, the OG grid. We've had a lot of fun traveling back to that period. Now this was in the SFX September magazine, and it's awesome that he confirmed this because we pretty much knew. What's really confusing about this is he calls it the Flynn grid, quote unquote, and this isn't where the problem ends, because in the magazine they also call the new NCOM grid the same as in Legacy. This particular one wasn't a quote. This is what the magazine said itself, but the fact that Joachim called the 82 grid the Flynn grid proves that there's either a miscommunication, they all know exactly what grids they're talking about, he just has different terminology for them, or unfortunately he's not as invested in the franchise as we thought. Now I don't want to be negative, I don't want to talk badly, but Disney did bring him on and he does seem passionate, and I'm very happy that he has made this movie, but there are little questionable things, like for example him saying that the first two movies don't really have that much heart. This is a quote in an interview, and that one kind of made me roll my eyes a little little bit. Obviously, he says that because this movie's way more focused on character and character growth, and I get it. I understand what he was trying to say. That is something they can strengthen compared to the first two movies, but I also do feel like it kind of puts down the first two movies in a sense, and it feels like he just watched them before getting the job, and it doesn't feel more like a passion thing. And I hope I'm wrong, but I just can't pretend to be positive all the time when there's these lingering issues here, and I just want to be completely transparent. It doesn't feel super genuine, some of the things he said, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt, and we're gonna see what happens, because realistically, based on everything we know, the NCOM grid in this movie was confirmed in a previous magazine to have been created by Eve Kim. The D23 magazine that came out about a month ago is where it was confirmed, and now they're saying it's the same grid as the Legacy grid, and then the 82 grid is from NCOM. We've got the Flynn grid from Legacy on a private server, we've got the old 82 grid, we've got the new NCOM grid that Eve made, we've got the Arc grid from Tron Catalyst and Identity. We basically have like 4 or 5 grids, and there could be new ones we've never even seen before in this movie, so I do want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but at the end of the day, this quote was a little concerning to me, I will admit that. Now I want to bring up Joseph Kosinski. I want to re-emphasize here, this movie is mostly what we would have gotten originally, it's just changed the focus on the characters, and we'll go into that even more in just a second. But with Joseph Kosinski, the reason I bring him up is because he's listed as a producer even though he was not directing the film, and I think it's the best of both worlds because we still have most of the creative team from Legacy. Now I want to bring up David DiGilio, who was a writer on the very early versions of Tron 3 in 2011 and 12. He's actually still listed on the credits with 15 different writers, and this is mainly due to him being one of the writers who wrote the character Ares, and it was fully intended that he would be the villain of this movie that Sam and Cora would have faced against. But over the years, the character actually evolved into being obviously the title character, and Justin Springer did bring this up as well in an interview about how he was attached as the villain from 2009 to 2012, and that in 2018, after the movie was put on ice, Leto was really the driving force on getting the film back into motion. So I'm really happy that this was said, and this just proves that without Leto, this movie just would not be happening. Now I want to end off this video going over characters that could be in the movie or almost were in the movie, and we got to focus on the character Bit that was seen in the 82 film and Tron Uprising. There was actually an early idea for Tron Ares from Disney execs to use a fully AI generated character that would have been a sidekick for Kevin Flynn. This was obviously going to be Bit, and although I wouldn't have had an issue with Bit being here, it's probably for the best they didn't go through with this due to the backlash. This doesn't mean we'll never see Bit again, but it's not likely we'll see him in Ares, probably a future project. Now another character who's likely not returning is Cillian Murphy, as another article came out recently from director Joachim Roning and producer Justin Springer regarding why him and Garrett Hedlund won't be returning. We can't rule out Garrett due to everything I mentioned earlier, so this is more specifically for Cillian, but he says, quote, "These things are not only creative choices, sometimes actors don't want to be in it anymore. We wanted to take this in a new direction while at the same time honoring the universe that we're in." This makes a ton of sense since the early reports in 2023 had Cillian returning as Dillinger Jr., and he probably declined as the movie made progress. Now I'm very happy with Evan Peters as Julian Dillinger and think he has done a fantastic job and will do a fantastic job, but it does make me think we could have had both in the movie and would have been even more epic. Now as for a comment from Justin Springer, it has to do with Tron Uprising, and I know this is a huge surprise that the show is even getting mentioned, and it was only referenced, but the fact that it even got brought up proves that the show isn't totally dead. He stated, quote, "If we don't touch something in this movie, I always think about where else we can play. I produced the animated series Tron Uprising, and I worked on the theme park rides. There are all sorts of ways to keep the mythology alive, whether that be in a film or a series or whatever, if we're so lucky." After the report from last year stating Disney has no plans for Tron Uprising, this for sure feels like we're heading in the right direction, especially if Tron Ares does well. We'll just have to hope for the best because this story 100% needs to be completed. Justin Springer also did discuss Tron Legacy and how its events are canon and they happened, but that they, quote, "are just not focused on that story right now." And the fact that they even keep saying right now or currently doubles down on the idea that if Ares is successful, we will for sure get stories with Sam and Cora again. Now as for merch, we have a bunch of different shirts from Kohl's. There's some really cool shirts with light cycles and the disc. I would recommend definitely buying these. They're really awesome. There's also a cool Tron Ares pin when you go to see the movie that you'll get at the theater, along with the light cycle popcorn bucket, as well as an arcade machine popcorn bucket. There are so much cool merch that we will be getting in the next couple weeks on top of the Hot Topic topic merch. There's also some Hasbro merch for Legacy and the original movie, and possibly for Ares as well. I am super excited for the future of Tron, but let me know down below what you guys think. Are you excited like I am?